All right, North-South Connection. We are live here on YouTube for the NoSo Post Show Survivor Series 2025 edition. I am joined here with Mike Rossi and Richie Mars. Mike, what is up, buddy?
What's up, man? How we doing?
Are you delayed or are you just no? Speak.
I don't. Yeah, what's up?
Yeah, he's fucking. All right, he's delayed or something. I don't know. Come back and rejoin, Richie.
Yep.
What's going on, dude?
It's going well, man. You know, another Survivor Series in the books, 4-match card, and we're probably going to get into it a little bit soon. But it was one of those shows where it's like exactly what we thought was going to happen happened, and you just start craving a little bit more.
Oh man, you can see behind the details on how I make my graphics now. You can see. I usually like to cover things up, but Rossi had to get booted for a minute. Now you can see my my mystery right there. So, all right, Rossi's back. All right, Rossi, you good, buddy?
I think. I mean, I don't know. It looks good to me.
There we go.
All right.
You are great. Before you were about a 5.5, 6 out of 10, just like this PLE. So
Okay.
Now you're rocking and rolling. Like the main event kind of maxed out or got to. Let's start there. Rossi, what did you think overall at the main event? Your winners in 39 minutes and 26 seconds. Braun Breaker, Bronson Reed, Brock Lesnar, Drew McIntyre, and Logan Paul defeated the Usos. I forgot the Usos were in the match. I'm not going to lie. Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns, and CM Punk. Rossi, let's throw to you. Overall thoughts on the main event.
So it felt it was building pretty well, and then it just ended. Obviously we got the masked superstar made their grand entrance to kind of cause the finish.
Edie was there.
Yeah, basically, It could have been. They scaled the cage pretty quickly, but yeah, it was. I mean, it was fun for what it was. Like I think that the Roman Brock brawl was pretty entertaining. And then he gets in the ring, gets his hands on the brass knuckles, and just cleans house. The spear through the table from Brock, like to Brock with Jay being held up, was pretty gnarly. And it was building, and then it ended. And
felt maybe it went a little early. Both matches.
Right. Yeah. I feel like they went home early. I mean, ultimately, I think everybody's going to talk about the masked man, right? I don't think that reveal is going to really be too awe-inspiring, but I think ultimately what people need to read between the lines and understand here is Braun Breaker pinned to CM Punk, and that's ultimately what we should be talking about coming out of this match.
Yeah, and do you just a quick question for both of you? Do you think that's going to be lost in translation with the night of just like what's happened during the War Games match, or just what happened during the night in general, or do you think that's going to be lost over when people are talking about this show?
I think that Paul Heyman will do an adequate job of hammering that home tomorrow night. And probably a reason why CM Punk and Braun Breaker did not go at Saturday night's main event for the world title is because Breaker's probably going to be a challenger, maybe at the Rumble, or even win the Rumble and go for WrestleMania.
Yeah, I agree.
Do you think
I agree.
Do you think that was the underlining rumors of we know what WrestleMania 42 is going to be, and we're not looking at it in the face right now of being Braun Breaker and CM Punk?
Yeah, I mean that feels the right way. If you're looking for WrestleMania stuff, which Heyman very heavily teased in the build-up this week and in the media. I mean, if you're thinking about that, you're pretty much staring at Braun versus Punk and Cody versus Roman 3. That's what it looks like to me.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, Richie, which one do you feel that as well with Roman and Cody 3, or do you think that was just like let's buy our time until we can kind of let the weeds settle out? And do you think it's good timing for that, by the way?
With Cody Roman 3, the third match needs to be one where there's no interference like the last two. It needs to be completely standalone. And it's a good way to like test the pulse if people want to see Cody Roman 3. And I think the audience word is adequate. It's just getting there is the issue, because you had Roman and his deal with the Vision, and Roman and Braun would be there if Braun would take the title off Punk early, and we had some miscommunication between Cody and Punk. So that was a tease as well that we could get Cody and Punk down the line. So the options are open there. It really just depends on where they see the most benefit on which world title match makes sense for each night. Personally, it's like I feel like any combination of Cody Punk or Cody Roman, and then you have Braun Punk or Braun Roman for different nights. I feel like those sets of world title matches would probably be the best for WrestleMania. But again, it just depends on what the overall reaction is, because we still have to get through a Rumble, we still have to get through a Chamber, and it just kind of depends on who you feel like is going to be best suited for the challenging positions and who you think is best suited for the champion positions.
I don't know. It just doesn't feel like it's time, in my opinion, yet. Of course, they're going to do. It's their two biggest stars, perhaps. I'm not sure if it's the biggest box office match that they have, but you could easily make the case that it is. 40 was, such a success, and then 39, bell to bell, was excellent. Really, it really was. It's really honestly forgotten about how good it wrestled that match was. It was honestly Roman's probably best performance on his whole run from an in-ring bell-to-bell standpoint. His boots were extra tight, or his Jordans were extra tight that night. Ross, do you feel like it's the right time, or do you right off the rip, like Band-Aid off, that's the main event they tell you? Do you feel that, like, in your gut it's time for that, or do you feel that there are we should go other places and wait for that?
I think that we're in a land where those three guys, Punk, Cody, and Roman, are very clearly your three top baby faces. And I feel like they have enough heels that are built up that they shouldn't go that route. Just look at Braun. Like, you could very easily do Braun and Roman. You can very easily do, Brock and Punk again. There's a couple of different routes that they could go that I just don't feel like they have to really push that button right now. It doesn't feel like they are lacking with other options to have to go that route. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know how many people really want that. But to Richie's point before, at this point, the last 3 or 4 years, there was clearly a Mania build that they didn't really finish, right? They ended up having to change for one reason or the other. Maybe there was something even planned months ago in the back of their heads involving Rollins that obviously can't be fulfilled at this point as well. So it's interesting that, like, we kind of have a canvas for what we think is a Mania right now, but we're still 5 months away, or 3, 4, 5 months away, something like that. So, and there's a Rumble in the way in Saudi. There's an Elimination Chamber in the way. They still have to have winners for that. So I don't think that it's really – we can look at this based on what Heyman was teasing, and that could have just been a way for us to kind of start talking about it. But I don't think that they should go that route, because I really don't feel – I think we need fresher matches at this point, and I don't think that there's an intrigue in doing like a baby with those two right now.
Yeah, and it's also the hesitancy of doing like Roman and Punk or Roman Breaker right now from WWE's end is that, like, Roman technically already faced Punk this year. You don't really want to back that up because Punk didn't really Punk was the one that really screwed Roman overall in that triple threat match. It was Seth's, but you can't do that story. And maybe WWE thinks it's too soon for Breaker. Personally, I think you just give him the chance to kind of run with it. I feel like can't hurt. And then you have Roman and Cody, and with Cody kind of now in that Seth position because there's still issues between Roman and Cody. I'm not sure anything other than the ending kind of hinted at more problems between the two, but it was just like one of those like cliffhangers where it's like, maybe there's something there, maybe there's not. And again, there's still time to kind of like test the waters of seeing which direction should you go in. And depending on how Roman's contract situation is, because I think his next one expires at 42. May. Yeah, May. And then he said he has another year or two after that. And then you have to keep in mind the Saudi WrestleMania, which people the people want Rock and Roman for that one. And then he only has one more left. So I think we're seeing Roman's final 3 WrestleManias, if that's going to be true, if he just wants to sign a 2-year deal or just have another deal. You get Cody this year, Rock the next year, and then you have Seth at the final one.
Maybe they flipped Seth and Roman with Seth's injury news, right, so to speak.
So yeah, Seth and Cody, yeah.
Probably quietly committed to Saudi, presuming that it's 44, right, and then 45. Maybe they had Cody for the finale of Roman's run, and then they maybe perhaps just flipped it a little bit. So interesting there. into Heyman's points earlier in the week, saying the definitive WrestleMania main event will be known at War Games. Heyman is going to talk about himself, and I'm pretty sure he's talking about Braun Breaker pinning CM Punk. So I think Braun Breaker is probably going to declare for the Royal Rumble, in my opinion, coming out of this, and say the vision is clear now, because coming out of Saturday night's main event, Breaker was very confused on why Heyman would not allow him in the Battle Royal and allow him to get after or keep the World Championship in his own opinion. Why can't I keep the world title? We have a plan, and the plan is the Royal Rumble. The plan is WrestleMania. The plan is to make a guy at WrestleMania. So that's probably, if the women don't have anything lined up, that's probably your night one main event, in my opinion. CM Punk versus Braun Breaker.
Yeah, I mean, I think the women we can talk about, there's a million interesting ways they can go with that. That could honestly get to that night one main event level. But like, my question is, with Punk, it feels like they're holding out on CM Punk singles matches. And what are we waiting for? Right? This guy's he's probably had the healthiest run since he's been back to wrestling back in 2021 right now. But do we really plan years ahead with CM Punk? And not just kind of start banging out some of these dream matches. And I'm mostly thinking Cody and Punk. Like, I feel like that's so clearly their biggest match right now that they just keep teasing, and they'll get to it eventually. But how do we know that they're both going to be healthy when they want to get to it,
Yeah. Like, if anything, like, the perfect timing, in my opinion, for the Cody and Punk match would be this year's WrestleMania, because you had their first segment together, which was the Rumble at 40, like before the Rumble at 40. Cody eliminates Punk sits out, and then you go the next year, and now Punk is the one that's chasing Cody when it was the other way around. And then it's a 3 strikes you're out rule. Then you have this one where Punk, I wouldn't have him win the Rumble, but I'd have him win the Chamber because Chicago. And then you have Cody, Punk, and then you see who's the better man. And I feel like that would be the more complete story to go to, because with Cody and Roman, as of now, there's not really much depth to have that third and final matchup. I think that's kind of ripping the Band-Aid off a little bit too soon. But again, not my company, not my problem. I'm just saying, timing-wise, Seth's injury really did kind of throw a wrench into what's going on. Granted, we're not having Seth Rollins versus CM Punk for the grand majority of the year, where it seemed like that feud was really running out of steam. But at the same time, like, with any injury, if one person gets taken out, another person gets rose up, So it's like it happened with Triple H, happened with Seth Rollins multiple times. So you have different stories where you could kind of like go in that direction.
All right, so we talked about the speculation coming into the night and what we think the fallout of that was. Let's talk about the actual match. CM Punk, thunderous ovation, in my opinion. The crowd was really yearning for this match, as their anticipation was very high, and CM Punk benefited immensely with a mega pop. And what did you think of Richie Braun Breaker being the one to start off right against him being the first two, with the conclusion that we kind of know of and just talked about?
I liked how the first two guys start War Games and the finish involved the first two guys. I'm not sure if we saw that in the previous War Games, but I really liked how that kind of tied everything together. It built Braun Breaker's case. I thought it'd be funny if they just started with Brock and Brock just kept suplexing people, but Brock doesn't get paid by the minute, so
very like Royal Rumble 2000 vibes.
Yeah. Imagine Brock having to do the stall spots during entrances.
Which
he just pace and just fucking be Brock Lesnar.
Yeah, but Punk and Braun, I think, were like a great two to start. I thought it was either going to be Punk and Braun or Cody and Braun, to be honest with you. But it made sense for Punk and Braun right here. And again, another question I want to ask you guys, because it was reported that like there was some tension on how the entrances should go for War Games, and then Big E brought it up at the pre-show press. Do you think that story was fed, or do you think that was it's already
look at the conclusion that we had with Punk Punk seemed cool with both guys, even though Cody was the one that knocked him down.
Yeah.
But I don't think Cody knocked him down for the CM Punk aspect of it down.
Mm-hmm.
I think Cody knocked him down to look like he is kind of vulnerable
Mm-hmm.
and he's alone. And he maybe just to test the waters as being, I don't want to say a bad guy, but against a bad guy before Roman Reigns showdown and Roman Reigns fallout.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that the elbow to Punk was obviously deliberate, but not for CM Punk case, but more for Cody Rhodes case, if that makes sense to you guys.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I keep coming back in my head to remember Punk wasn't supposed to even be champion at this point. So this whole match kind of was kind of repieced together anyway. So I think ultimately they got to the same finish, right? But obviously the pieces have moved a little bit on the chessboard, right? But all in all, yeah, Punk and Braun starting it, I thought was a very good stretch because obviously they got the big 5 minutes, and maybe the contention on who the match order was because you knew whoever was first was going to get the biggest pop.
Yeah, true. Well, and last, right? Especially when
Right.
the baby faces not having the advantage. They would, you benefit from opening and you benefit from closing. And Roman Reigns only opens or close. So it was more of like, all right, well, the story of CM Punk getting pinned is more important than Cody Rhodes. And I think it's funny that Cody Rhodes came out second, but first coming out second for the bad guys was Drew McIntyre. Before Drew McIntyre came out, Rossi, Barrett did a great job of setting Breaker up. I think he has everything besides a world's championship. So mind you, that's the through line throughout the whole match. And then again, Cody Rhodes or CM Punk takes him down with the hard clothesline. And then we get that little stare down. Last time they were in a steel cage, they were at each other's throat, and that's Drew McIntyre and CM Punk. And Rossi, what do you think about them? We're kind of rekindling their little vibes. And the question I asked you before you give me your thoughts on that, does CM Punk just feel like such a bigger star and more important than Drew McIntyre here to about a year and a half later?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Drew just seems like a guy that's just kind of like the War Games mercenary, right? Like he just gets thrown onto whatever the heel team is. But yeah, and I liked it. I thought it was a cute layout because obviously with the heels having the advantage, you probably want to send out Punk's biggest rival on that other side. At least historically, right? So I thought that was good. And then obviously Cody coming to kind of save him also worked out. And then there was that little friction that was between the two. But the fact that they had the little friction and they didn't come back to it is really where, they will eventually, right? That wasn't just done. So I definitely think that having Drew in that spot was fun. I think it really kind of made the match go. And then it kind of lulled out a little bit with Logan and Jimmy. Before they did obviously like the big J entrance before they got to Brock. But I think it started hot, ended hot, and the middle was like any War Games matches. It's there and it's not always exciting until everybody's ready to go.
Well, Rossi really accelerated this pace for us, Richie. But I thought that athletic wise, when Logan Paul entered, things picked up pretty well. Cody Rhodes again first with the big pop. And, the save, but he kind of ended it with the elbow that we kind of kept talking about as well. But from an athletic standpoint and a movement standpoint, first, what do you thoughts on Cody Rhodes? And secondly, I thought that it picked up really well, and it's a good sign for Logan Paul that, they leaned on his athleticism to not pick up interest, but to create a lot more movement and different style halfway through the match.
Yeah, with Logan's entrance into the match, I really thought the pace definitely quickened a little bit. It was also probably much needed because it was right before or right after the Braun Breaker Doomsday Device spot.
Which was gnarly, man.
It looked really scary and like very concerned for a little bit. So it's like so much so it's like they had the camera kind of like pan towards Cody, Punk, and Drew kind of like double teaming, and you could tell when the camera's like not trying to shoot somebody. So it's like you're kind of like concerned with Braun, and it's like thankfully he seemed to be okay. But with Logan, he definitely is very good in these cruiserweight type spot situations where it's like you just need to pick up the speed a little bit. And two guys that you could definitely pick up the speed tempo is Cody and to a lesser extent Punk, because with Cody he's more of like an adaptive kind of performer where he could kind of adapt to any style that performer goes into. I think recently he's been trying to do more power stuff, and I feel like that's not really his ball a little bit. I feel like his is more like, the well-rounded style, which isn't really exciting, but it's like you can connect from point A to point B. And with Logan, it definitely brings out that side of Cody where it's like he can kind of maneuver a little bit more and kind of like be in the right position. I think like also agility wise, I think this is probably one of the best times like Punk looked like he like wasn't as CM Punkish, for lack of a better term, where it's just kind of like a little off here and there, you know, with the movements. He looked like he was there, like when Braun was like hitting the ropes really fast and he hit the leg lariat, like boom, just crisp, you know. And like you don't really see like many crisp moves from CM Punk, especially nowadays. But again, pleasant surprise, and I think it brought the best out of both guys at this point in the matchup.
Yeah, Rossi, do you think that was by design from any nature? CM Punk's could have been in there from the start. He's going to show his age and he's going to show a weakness for where he can take the loss to Braun Breaker. Is there any substance to that claim that I had, or do you think that Punk is just looking a little long in the tooth with all these 30-somethings in the ring?
Yeah, to Richie's point, I definitely think he caught up. You know, stood up to everybody else pretty well in this match. And I mean, Braun and Drew have kind of that like prodding style until Braun starts running around anyways. So he kind of is a natural fit, and I think they've done enough work together that they have like a good cadence with each other. And then Logan came in and you know, him and Punk kind of have a weird chemistry too, right? So you look at this and you see that there's really a lot of singles challenges lined up on this team for Punk at some point, however route they go. And ultimately, yeah, like I was saying earlier, Punk wasn't supposed to be champ. So maybe there's a pivot coming that we don't even see as quick as, you know, might be even as early as the Rumble or well before Mania that they even take the title off of them, and then you can go another route. Like I was saying, I think this is Punk's healthiest stretch without, you know, being on the shelf since he's been back to wrestling. And I think that he's starting to kind of show that he is still in that upper tier. He still has his moments that, you know, you're like, all right, that was not as smooth, but it's CM Punk, man. He's got the star power that goes with the in-ring. So he meshed well. I think he worked. And I just think that he's kind of figured out how to maximize what he does in the ring right now with, you know, while staying healthy and while, you know, making every move matter.
Yep. All right. Jimmy showed up. Whatever. Jimmy, get better gear, please. Just get better gear. Especially in the ring with all these stars. He looked like just the worst version of himself with like the one on his chest. Like, I don't know. Poor Jimmy.
How that guy doesn't get pinned, right? As you're watching the match, you're like, well, if anybody's going to get pinned in this match, it's got to be him.
Yeah, no doubt. Poor Jimmy. But what I do say, Tsunami Party, man. I think everyone could do Tsunami when Bronson Reed come out, and I thought that was well done.
Yeah, pretty much get him like in and out, get his spots in, and then pretty much he could just like kind of chill for the rest of the matchup. Like he got his moment, and then just kind of like peel it back so you could like show him to be like more of a monster.
Yeah, it was more absolutely. I thought that it was like it's not about him, but let's highlight who he is so he can, you know, introduce himself to the world because whatever, right? So, yeah, I thought it was really smart because he's, you know, fifth on the cog on that heel team for tonight. So smart. Jimmy came out. We didn't get the yeeting. We didn't get the big entrance because this team was in desperate need. But once they got the upper hand, we had the round around bouts and we started doing the yeeting again. And I actually don't love the second roundabout, but tonight I didn't hate it, and I love how it transitioned to Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar pops up, and whoa, boy, the altitude in the room changed, Richie.
Yeah, it was very much of it's like, all right, we're gonna have fun, and then like once like you hear like the couple of guitar riffs of Brock's entrance, that's when you like, okay, the mood has changed. So I really did enjoy that kind of that spot. I know a lot of people have mixed feelings on the run it back kind of deal. But it's like it really did kind of remind me of like Tonight is good. It also reminded me of like AEW has a match called like Anarchy in the Arena where they'll have like music played. So right here, I didn't really find it that offensive. And again, just for that moment for like the Brock Lesnar guitar riff, I think it was even more effective because they didn't have the clock on there.
Yeah.
So it's like then like
it got a big pop.
It got a pop, and like it was like that's the reason why you don't have like little things like the clock on there right now. So it's like you're like your guard is down, and then when Brock's entrance hits, that's when you're like, ooh, now you know like things are about to happen.
Yeah, for a second you forgot Brock was even coming out next.
Yeah, he got a massive pop as he should, you know, for an event like this, and he was fired up. Like he got the big. Well, Heyman came out with him, which was an awesome touch, right? And then you got the whole boom, and then you get the whole Brock, and just him sauntering to the ring.
And he didn't fall on his ass.
Hey,
which
he
is
didn't trip
good.
this time.
Unfortunately, right? But the mood of the match changed, and there was some shit like Punk attacked. He attacked Punk first, threw him out of the way. He attacked the Usos, threw him out of the way, and then there was like Punk went for seconds, and then Cody went for him, and I was just like, who's that on? Because did Brock grab the wrong guy? Because like whatever, Cody came off or Punk came off the top rope or something. It was a little.
Well, remember, this is
weird.
the same guy that won the end of the Elimination Chamber early, so he just broke out of his pod. So Brock's just gonna find like who's ever in front of him and get a feed for him.
Yes.
So if it's Cody, if it's Punk, like you'll like throw both of them. You know what I mean? So it's like I think Jimmy was the first one to get NF5, and then I think Cody, Punk, and like Jay didn't get one for a while, and then he got one. And it was a typical like kind of Brock like domination thing. Like everyone kind of gave him his space. I was really concerned because the table was like in the corner, and I think Brock German Jay, and I think Jay's head just like smacked the back of the table, or nearly did. It really, I kind of winced when I saw that. I was like, oof.
Yeah, the only German that looked like clean was the Punk. Like not as in like, all right, I got you, buddy. You know, it's just like you're good. Like the extra hold on to make sure he got it.
Yeah,
Punk was probably like, all right, don't
once Brock starts throwing a bunch of them in a row, he kind of stops caring where they end up.
Yeah, like Cody was taking a bunch of the bellies, and then I think Punk was more of the Germans.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
and
it's
the
like
Usos were getting whatever the fuck they had coming to them.
Just
this is what you're here for. So Brock cleaned house for all 4 or 5 minutes he was in there, and then he put his feet on the steps before the War Games actually started because they did a good job all night reminding you what the rules were because people aren't going to remember to an extent, right? Especially unless if you're like us, the ardent fans, the newbies, or the people that chime in only for the PLEs and had seen this match from a year ago or very limited. They should know what the rules are. So beating you over the head with the rules are smart. There is a rule that I want to go over later, but for now, Brock did a good job of like exiting the ring before the War Game started to kind of set the tone for Roman Reigns. He ended up getting the upper hand, sending him through the announce table, and then they threw him in the ring, and the War Games officially began with Roman Reigns kind of having a comeuppance on Brock, but then finding himself down on his luck. And the War Games had began with the heels kind of on top. What was the vibe for you, Rossi, as the War Games kind of started?
Yeah, I mean, at that point, the heels looked super dominant. And, Logan get the brass knuckles and started going to town. So it kind of was the final shine up moment for people that might not have been involved in the finish. That's kind of how it all looked. And then Roman got his hot spot, and they did a good teeter tatter at that point. And I think, everybody that kind of worked hard early kind of got their break at this point. So then the later half of the match kind of got their shine on. So I thought that the layout to that point was very good. And, whenever the War Game starts, you're like, all right, well, Brock's in this one. I wasn't kind of expecting this one to go very long. So it felt like it was going to end quick when the way they were hitting big spots and Roman was hitting spears and, he ended up trying to get the spear from Braun and ended up hitting one himself. So all in all, I think ultimately they paced out this part of it well and kind of tease you that, this finish isn't too far behind.
All right, Richie, question for you. Now, I mentioned that the War Games was 39 minutes and 26 seconds. When do you think Alicia Taylor announced that War Games had begun?
Probably, I want to guess 31, 32.
33:55. So
close.
So pretty good guess, my buddy. And
so like 5 minutes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so about 5 to 6 minutes of action. And like we said at the beginning, kind of did end quick. And it did end quick. And I'm not mad at it because look at the monsters that you have in there. You were at war for 33 minutes. I'm totally good at it, right? It became all based around the story. Get up, Roman, Paul shouts. Roman struggles to stand. Paul charges, but Reigns picks him off with a huge spear. Reigns stole the brass knuckles from Paul's fist. Then he put him on and hit a Superman punch on Reed. Then McIntyre. Breaker came into view, pulling down the straps. He invited Reigns to charge him. Reigns hit him with a spear, dragging Dre dragged Lesnar to his feet. Brock holstered Jay up for an F5. Reigns charged, spearing Lesnar through the prop top table. Breaker speared Jimmy. McIntyre gave Rhodes a low blow. Breaker speared Jay. Braun moved to the right ring. You'll never be better than a Steiner, told Cody. Braun hit the ropes and dropped the WWE champion with a spear. Breaker charged CM Punk, but Punk sidestepped him and sent Breaker carrying into the cage. Paul attacked Punk, but Punk countered and hit the GTS. He covered, but the camera cut to a man dressed in all black climbing the cage wall. He landed in the ring, gave Punk a super kick, then a stomp. Breaker looked on in shock. The masked man climbed back up the cage and left. Breaker gave Punk another spear and pinned him for a 3 count. Who wants up first for that finish? That was the closing segment of the match. I thought it was laid out pretty well. And Richie, do you have a theory on who that man is?
I not only have a theory, I have an Austin theory on who that man is.
Oh.
Because again, if you kind of look how it was shot and the mannerisms of the body and stuff like that, I'm looking at it, I'm like, that's definitely theory. Because it's just like, it's the same body type, it's the same height, it's the same way he stands. And he's probably the only person that size that can actually cleanly pull off the super kick stomp combo. And it does make sense if it is Theory, other than, the rumors that Theory was going to join the Vision, because Theory does have a history with Paul Heyman back in Evolve. So if they bring up like that, I feel like that would be like a clean way in order to get him in. I just love how the Vision, like almost each and every member, it's usually an interference in a match or they're in a hood. Braun in a hood, Bronson attacked during a match, Becky, hood, and now this mystery person, hood. So I really do think that if it's like, well, if we can't put Theory in the match, then he can be the mystery man, and there's something that Punk can try to at least carry like an episode or two of Raw where he's like trying to figure out who this mystery man is. Now knowing creative, maybe it's Jey Uso or somebody, even though he's in the match. But it's one of those things where I feel like Austin Theory is probably the most likely person to actually be a part of this Masked Man storyline.
If all the theories are true online, Rossi, do you think this is a good use of Austin Theory? It's a pretty big spot, and for him to kind of culminate the War Games would set him up for success in the future, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean the thing too is he was Punk's. I mean, I'm sorry, he was Rollins' understudy at one point. So him coming in and perfectly hitting Rollins' moves. In fact, I think he made the stomp look even better than Rollins does. It was good delivery. I mean, it just makes a lot of sense for him. Now, when we look back at the reveal, and Austin Theory is the reason that the most star-studded War Games match ended, is kind of jarring. But it's all in how everything goes. And the funniest thing that I read when I opened up X after was people saying, was it Theory or was it Jericho? And Jericho. It was like, Jericho could never climb the cage like that fast. He doesn't have a back like that. And granted, you could always do the reveal and it not be the person that originally did it, right? But it's just that's not, you wouldn't do that as a surprise if you had Jericho, So that's where, it's Theory. It's clearly Theory, and it makes sense that it's Theory. It's just a little disappointing that that's going to be a surprise reveal after they did a 45,000 seat stadium with that star power in the main event.
This match really did remind me of I believe it was the 2017 traditional Survivor Series men's match, where each team was like stacked with like all these different people. Like you had like Triple H, Kurt Angle, John Cena, Randy Orton, Bobby Roode, Shinsuke Nakamura, Finn Balor,
Braun Strowman,
the best in the world, Shane McMahon. Like you have all this star power. It's really hard to deliver on a match where you're like, how is this going to live up to expectations? And I feel like that's what happened with this War Games, where it's like you have like two very stacked teams, but I feel like and it's great that they did this, that the Vision team really did show out, and the Babyface All-Star team didn't really have many moments as like a collective that really stood out. You had individual moments with them, but you didn't really have those moments during the match, where the only exception was the Cody Punk, elbow spot. Like, you didn't really have Cody interact with Roman. You didn't really have many like Roman interacting with each and everybody. And he has like a storyline with the Usos now currently too, and that was kind of dropped, and he even made reference to an interview that he had today, saying that it's like the interview is like, oh, I thought we were going to see you till Christmas. And he's like, oh, it's always Christmas when you're the OTC or something like that, where it's like you're kind of just dropping storylines in order to kind of pivot towards what we see here, which makes sense because, a big factor of that story being Seth Rollins isn't in the picture. So you're going to have to retcon some things, I guess.
Yeah, and I believe when I did the preview with Ibu, I think he let it out of his bag that the proponent backstage of Jey Uso is kind of Roman Reigns. And whenever he's around, Roman Reigns kind of does what he wants. And Jey Uso gets the most attention when Roman Reigns is there from a character and a story standpoint. Because he's going to benefit when Roman Reigns, because that's what he wants to do when he's there. But now that it's WrestleMania season, we see that Roman Reigns has a direction, and left out in the dust is the Usos, and all the fall that we put into Jey Usos, all those Monday Night Raw main events with Jey Uso, is nothing going to come from that because Roman Reigns now has his main event program for WrestleMania. So it's just that part is kind of like dull, lame, and annoying, to be frank, because why invest all that time with Jey Uso unless if it's going to go somewhere, or if it's just going to be like a side story for Roman Reigns, then let's kind of get our poker chips in another area with Jey Uso and our main events on Raw for all of September, October, and fucking whatnot. So it's a little annoying to me, to be frank, because if the writing team doesn't really want to go with Jey Uso at that level, but Roman Reigns kind of keeps forcing the hand, then what are we doing?
You think we get a Jey Uso Gunther 6 in the finals?
No.
Yeah,
no.
I'm thinking night.
Richie,
it's got to be night. Yeah. It's got to be night.
It's got to be night. Richie, you bring that up again, man. We're going to have discussions. The world does not want that.
Listen, we're going to go back a year or two from now, do a NoSo countdown on the top Jey Gunther matches like you did for Randy and Cena. It just makes sense. You start at the bottom with the WrestleMania one, and then you just kind of work your way up.
All right. Anything lasting on this War Games match? I did suspect that perhaps with the change of the format with the no shark cages, that we'll talk about that structure when we get to the women. But I kind of thought that maybe it had something to do with like an angle for tonight. If it was someone's taken out, a return, or something, or whatever. Thoughts on why they changed that? Let's kind of closing on this match. Rossi, we'll start with you.
Entrances felt bigger. In War Games before, it was kind of awkward because all the entrances would happen before the match, and then they would play their ominous music and the cage would open and one guy would run to the ring. Didn't have the same feel, and I think with the length of the ramp and being in the baseball stadium with the pyro availability that they had, it made a lot of sense to make the entrances feel bigger. You think about Brock coming out with the big pop and with the pyro. Roman's pyro was crazy. Rhea's was nuts. You had that element that just took advantage of the fact that you were in a baseball stadium with an open roof, that you were able to kind of just blow shit to the sky all night. And it worked out. I think visually it was good. It built anticipation. It got better crowd reactions. If you're banging, 10 guys entrances out to start the match, and then you have 10 lulls when they're coming down this long ramp as the match goes on. So at first I didn't like it. But then as they did it, I thought it made sense. What I really was happy with was Cole explained the rules and how it's different, which a lot of times they don't ignore it, and that they ignore stuff like that, and that's what pisses me off. But then also looking at the entrance ramp, they didn't really have a place to put the shark cages. Pretty narrow, kind of like those old stadium, baseball park rumble entrances were. And it really maximized the amount of people they probably got in the building by shortening that stuff up. So I think it was a well-calculated idea that paid off in making the entrances feel more special.
Richie, anything on the entrances and the closure of this match before we move to the women?
No, like you guys, I thought there would have been a little bit more towards the entrances. Like somebody gets taken out, and then the delay in the match happens. Like I thought with the women having the advantage, I think that was one of the perfect opportunities for Becky to like attack AJ and then have AJ go to the back and then come reappear. But like again, that might have been predictable for some people, so I'm glad they went in a different direction. I was joking with my friend and with the no cage, and I was like, I guess Brock didn't want to stay in the cage for that long. You know? So it's like it's one of those things. I do want to, not the end of the match, but just want to appreciate the crispness and cleanness of Cody's crossbody onto Drew through the cage or on top of the cage. Like, because when he did that, I was like, oh, he's going to overshoot him. But like Drew had him, and it was good. But yeah, finish of the men's, I could feel sort of deflateness from the crowd because you're just like you guys said, this is how the All-Star team like ends. And then again, the finish where it's like you have Roman helping up Punk because they were in the new Zootopia movie together, and then you had
they're buddies, zebras.
Zebras, you know. And then again, the whole like Roman Cody stuff, like it just didn't really click with me with like Roman like wanting to help but not doing it, and Cody getting up on his own. You know, again, that was like disconnect for me because I'm just like, really, we're doing this now? Like, because again, they didn't interact during the entire matchup, I don't think. So I'm just like, why would they have tension like now? Because like neither one of them what were the reason why their team lost. Like if anything, like Punk would probably get the heat for it.
Yeah.
So that's just my opinion.
Yeah, but I think with Roman kind of acknowledging like, hey, Punk, you started, you took the biggest beating. You had my back last year, Knuckles, good job,
Knuckles.
Good try or whatever. So, all right, here's my conclusion on the War Games match. It's probably the weakest men's War Games out of the four. And I still think 2022 is the best. And perhaps we're going downhill each year in a way. And that's kind of the eighth War Games on the main roster.
Yeah.
Fatigue in a way too. Hard to come up with creative ideas.
Yeah.
They should probably put this on the sidelines in a little bit for, in my opinion.
The pro and con of the War Games matches is for War Games, you could build these like super stacked teams, right?
Yeah.
The problem is like you build these super stacked teams and there can only be one loser, so to speak.
Yeah.
And you can't do that with traditional Survivor Series matches because everybody has to get pinned eventually. But the problem is that's like with War Games, it's very formulaic at this point. Like in comparison to last year's, I think both these War Games matches focus less on, the weapon spots and stuff. And we're more into tag team spots and what have you. And I feel like that really deflated everybody's expectations because these both seem pretty tame from a story standpoint and from an in-ring standpoint in comparison to the last couple War Games.
Yeah, I would just put it, it's probably the worst of the four, but it's still baseline great at times. And for the modern WWE War Games, it's a success. I think it was a good to very good to even borderline great match, but it just didn't hit the bar of the previous years. And this is probably, honestly, might be looking back as the most melatonin PLE of the year, if you look at it. And they really needed a home run from the men's to kind of flip the switch on that. And they got a strong performance, but they needed a little bit more. I would have... For the historical aspect, I don't think we've needed a second War Game since the first one from a storyline baseline. So
I think each year that's gotten worse too. Although I think they did a pretty sensible job of putting this one together, despite the obstacles of Rollins getting hurt. Like the Judgment Day year made sense because that was kind of.
And last year, the bloodline's blowing up. Yeah, it just...
Right. The biggest thing I think about at the end of the show is it felt with the theory thing or the masked man thing, it felt like something was coming with all the baby faces left in the ring, right? And then nothing came. And like I thought about like back in the day on that Rumble that ended with Sammy hitting Roman with the chair. Like, did we even remember how that Owens match really ended? No, you just thought about the segment that came after it. So that's what I kind of, as it was going on, I'm like, oh, that was kind of a flat finish to the match. Maybe there's some big, crazy, turn or beatdown coming, and then it didn't come. So that, I think, is going to leave a bad taste in people's mouth because they kind of feel like the end of the match was disappointing with the fact that there was probably a not super surprising debut or, return, we'll say, and then nothing else happened after the fact except, oh, we're never going to team together again. It just felt flat.
Yeah. It really felt like when Roman was going through the ropes, I thought Cody was going to do what he did to Kenny at like New Japan and just like hit a crossroads out of nowhere. And I was like, no, they're not going to do that right now.
Yeah.
And
I think they could have done something, but then they're not going to indicate Cody turning heel.
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing. But it's like, again, you have this expectation where it's like, oh, it's going to set up WrestleMania. And then you're like, did it though? Maybe it's like the first, like, it wasn't like an overall hint, like you got the Roman Cody stare down from that SmackDown, a couple years ago. So it's just one of those things where it's like you saw Braun get his moment, pin Punk, and I thought that was the right move. I thought that was the correct move. But overall, it's like, yeah, it did its job. It's like wanted a little bit more of a zest to this match. But again, did its job fine.
All right, guys, we're going to actually go in reverse. Usually I like to hit the high points and then start at the beginning. But we're just going to go in reverse because I don't want to end with Vicaire and Nikki. And I think the timing is kind of now. Again, Nikki Bella defeated by Stephanie Vicaire, 12 minutes and 20 seconds. I feel like Nikki had about a stretch of heat for like 8 minutes, and it was all right. It was fine, but it felt like a SmackDown match from, that was from the mid 2010s, and it was just like, we just had Monday Night Raw. You guys need to go out there and have 2 segments, and the crowd just wasn't feeling it. And it was fine. It was good, but it wasn't PLE worthy. But I like that they made, storyline wise, I liked how they made looking Bella look, and I like how Vicaire overcame, and Vicaire overcame, the crowd came as well. So I guess the long and the short of it, Nikki did an adequate job of doing her job, even though no one really wanted to see it, and that's the story of it, unfortunately. But Rossi, we did the preview for this match. What'd you think of it?
I think it was in a spot that not many matches would have had the crowd, right? After the Cena stuff that people were super up for and the Liv return, which we'll get into, it was a flat spot, and it was going to be a flat spot no matter who they put in this spot, in my opinion, because you had so much star power in the War Games matches, and then you had John Cena and Dom Mysterio, what was pretty much been leading your Raw show for the last month. So I think that they both worked well. I think the Nikki entrance was good, and she's got the heel persona. She's doing well with it, and I think they've got legs with that. Like I look at somebody like Maxine that could benefit from maybe getting a win over Nikki. And it's a legacy win for Vicaire. I thought that the finish made sense. There was no bullshit. Vicaire kind of got a clean as could be victory, without, it being muffled up at all. And at the end of the day, I think it was just a spot to get Vicaire a nice win on pay-per-view, because she's somebody that is going to be running with this belt for quite a while, in my opinion.
Wow. So Lane Kiffin's going to LSU, huh? Breaking news a little bit, but they're going to delay it so we can play out the college championship. Interesting. I feel bad for Ole Miss fans, but that's for another day. All right, Richie, anything on Nikki Bella versus Stephanie Vicaire?
Yeah, I thought this was Nikki's probably best performance since she came back. Again, the bar wasn't really set really high for Nikki and Stephanie, and again, they were put in a really brutal spot, considering the match placement. I think the crowd really came alive when Stephanie hit that knee drop to the outside, and then you had the devil's kiss on the announce table, which was pretty solid. And I haven't seen that before, and kudos to Nikki for taking it. But yeah, it's one of those building wins for Stephanie Vicaire. She hasn't really been the primary focus on Raw, and hopefully that starts to change with either this program or the next program. But she is getting quality wins, and I think that is a good thing to do for your champion, to have their eyes on the prize for this product.
She's a Hall of Famer too, right? So.
Yeah, and it's like these wins are really stacking up. Like you have EO, you have Tiffany, you have Nikki, and again, just slowly but surely, you're going to start building all these different people. Now, the issue with that is the Raw Women's division is really stacked, And that normally isn't an issue, but then you have to go with, okay, who is over enough that we could put against Stephanie, but not so over that they're going to overshadow Stephanie. And I think that's like one possible issue that WWE might contend with, because you still want to cement Stephanie as a star of WWE, but you don't want it to be at an expense of somebody you're building, or like where somebody's popularity is overshadowing Stephanie, where it's just kind of dwarfs her star power.
At the end of the day, it's her first defense, really, against a legacy star. No one really anticipated a good match, but they got a decent match out of it. It's just the circumstances. The decent was the ceiling with the match placement, the build, the buzz, and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, it did its job of everything you outlined, Richie, for Stephanie, and it did its job for the quality that you outlined too, Mike. So it kind of is what it is. I think we should just move on. I'm sorry, girls, right? But Dominic Mysterio with Raquel Rodriguez and Roxanne Perez defeats John Cena via pinfall in 16 minutes and 42 seconds in a singles match to regain his Intercontinental Championship. You go check out the YouTube, the short on the YouTube. Seth, our buddy Richie, sent me a quick clip from the PLE, and John Cena came right in his face. So you want to be up close and personal on John Cena's last PLE, go check out a YouTube short where Seth was able to send me that video, and I uploaded it right away. So that was pretty cool of him. And it's a cool video. It's 10 seconds. You're not going to go wrong looking at it. But I thought this was... I don't think we got as much as we got in the Boston match, but it was the same vibe and pretty much the same continuation of that, right? It was very delayed. It was very in Dominic Mysterio's lane. It was very in John Cena 2025 lane, and it's what these guys should be doing, right? You didn't have the arena atmosphere that kind of play into this, but you could still feel the stadium playing into it as well, if that makes any sense to you. Think of like WrestleMania 22 opposed to WrestleMania 23, where you had a ruckus crowd at WrestleMania 22, made that vibe feel much more inclusive, right? But and then you go to WrestleMania 23, it just felt bigger. The same sentiment with this match in a way too here. I prefer the Boston match, but this was in no reason whatsoever a bad match whatsoever. I thought it was cute while growing off some of the Boston cuteness, right? Like you got the Eddie Guerrero fakeness of the shoulder. Well, I was like, oh shit, did he kind of land? Because they did a great job with the magic showing him land on his shoulder. I'm like, oh man, did he fuck it up? Like I was there for a second. And then when Raquel came in and gave him a Tahana bomb, and then Roxanne gave him Rocks Pops or whatever the fuck it's called. And I was just like, all right, they got me. And then Dom came in with the 619. I was like, all right, so that's like risky gaga, but no, it's working. it's playing into the structure of the match, and this match is what it is. And again, it's building off of those kind of spots, and that led to obviously the "you're out of here" from the refs. And again, that's playing into the structure of the match, so no complaints whatsoever. And then you get the music of Liv Morgan eventually down the line, and man, that was a pretty big pop. That was bigger than any of the women's pops in the War Games from the match before, in my opinion. And I like that it was sudden in the match too. And then Liv arose, and then she came out with that bitching look on her face, and Dom was just like, "Oh hey, what's up, Liv? My girl's back." And then she gave him a slap that missed by a mile, and I was like, "Oh no, they fucked up the slap, right?" And then John Cena with his corn, but it's like good corn, good John Cena corn, because that's the structure of this match. And then Liv Morgan turns around and then goes to give a hug to John Cena, and then John Cena with the surprise face, right? And that surprise face looked like this, Richie, right? And he's just like, I'm married, but old John Cena would be so into this, and but then the camera panned to Liv Morgan, like the camera panned to John Cena at the Elimination Chamber back in March. And then she gave that menacing look. And then John Cena released the hug. And then John Cena was unaware, like Cody Rhodes was unaware. And then Liv Morgan ramped back and kicked him right in the dick. like John Cena picked Cody Rhodes right in the dick. And then Dom Mysterio's plan paid off. If there was always a plan B, like The Rock and Cody. Full circle here, Richie Mars. Full circle. Mike Rossi, Dom Mysterio with the 1, 2, 3 after the frog splash. And the 6th one. I kind of dug it. It was what it was. I did that all off memory. I did not read anything. I don't know if I missed anything.
Yeah, you missed JD and Finn.
Oh, there was a lot of Gaga here, but a lot of Gaga. But again, another callback. They did the WrestleMania 25 with the Edge and the Big Show in the FU there, and the crowd erupted for that. Richie, you reminded me of something I missed out. Is there anything I missed out from the top of my head? And what did you think of this match before we throw to Rossi?
No, I think you pretty much got it all covered. I did like, they kind of played off the Penta spot from the past Raw, where it's just like, oh, wow, Penta got hurt from that move. It's like the Dom got hurt from that move. And I really did enjoy how in this matchup, John gave each member of the Judgment Day, like, a moment to shine. Yes, JD and Finn got hit with the double AA, but it's like, that's the last double AA that you're ever going to see. Yep. And like it's like JD being a trivia question from now on who John Cena last pinned on Monday Night Raw. It's JD McDonough, and now Raquel looks like a beast, looks like a monster, hitting her finish on John Cena. Same thing with Roxanne, and you got the Liv Morgan, using that heel turn as a way to put the rub on Liv Morgan, as she's the one that pretty much caused John Cena to lose his last championship in WWE. And Dominic gets that win back where it's like he's the last person to win a title off of John Cena. So John did a fantastic job on making the Judgment Day in this matchup. And like with any and most John Cena matches for 2025, it was going to be a lot of Gaga. It was going to be a lot of smoke and mirrors, because John can't do many of the one-on-one classics that I think people expect him to do. Like for every AJ, Logan, Cody SummerSlam match, there is going to be, the Randy match, the CM Punk match, the Elimination Chamber, where there's going to be a lot of different elements to kind of hide the fact that John Cena has lost a step, and he admittedly has lost a step. And that's why he's hanging on up now. But as a match itself, if you're not a fan of the overbookedness, I understand it completely. However, if there was a way for Dom to regain the Intercontinental Championship, this was the way to do it. Putting the shine on not only Dom, but the faction members around him. And now you have that question. And I know a lot of people are frustrated with the Judgment Day story, and I understand. I jokingly and lovingly refer to the Judgment Day story as the Judgment Days of our lives, with all the different stories and beats we have. But now you have Liv back. How is that going to change the dynamic of the Judgment Day? Because they were in a groove without her, and now she's back. So what's going to happen? Adam Pearce promised Raquel Rodriguez a shot at the world title. Is Liv going to be okay with that? So many different questions that we're going to see. And then you could potentially have Stephanie Vaquera and Liv as well. So I don't know, just one of those things where John did everything in his power to make the Judgment Day in this segment right here and put a spotlight on them.
Rossi, for the Intercontinental title match.
Yeah, so my thought as it was going on was, wow, they're really rebuilding the Judgment Day, right? And it makes a lot of sense because they've been on ice, right? Like in a way they haven't been, because they've always been a part of TV, but like movement in the story has been on ice because they were waiting for Liv to come back, right? Obviously, for the last 6 months, we've had friction between Finn and Dom. We've had Raquel and Roxanne kind of being in the middle of the two, kind of trying to keep the calm, and it was just delaying Liv returning, right? So obviously that Liv returning piece and what happens next with Judgment Day is going to be such a gigantic part of Raw moving forward, especially as we start getting into December, where, you know, other than the Saturday Night's Main Event, we're kind of have lulls in TV and whatnot. I could see them having some like odd bedfellows as far as like, you know, giving each other Christmas gifts and shit. Like, it's going to be weird, right? But this is all going to be a big part of what Raw going forward post Cena. So it made Dom have the ability to always say he beat John Cena in John Cena's last pay-per-view match. He beat him in my home city and got my title back in San Diego. And at the end of the day, Dom is one of the people that you wanted Cena to kind of give a boost to on his way out. And he definitely did that. And Judgment Day in general was kind of, an add-on to that. But one thing I just have to say is what if I told you in January that John Cena's last pay-per-view match was going to include him getting hit with a Tejana bomb by Raquel Rodriguez, get hit by a pop rocks by Roxanne Perez, and the main portion of the match was going to be a Liv Morgan return, you probably would have gotten me committed to a loony bin.
Yeah, that's a pretty good point, actually. With that being said, my next question was this good use for John Cena in his last match? Richie?
I mean, you showcased a bunch of different people in this one matchup, so if there was any way to do so, like, it was the perfect opportunity to, because everyone's going to be watching John Cena's last match on, ESPN or PLE or whatever you want to call it. So you get to showcase Raquel, Roxanne, Finn, JD, Dominic, and highlight that Liv Morgan return as something that's going to be talked about not only the next day, but it's a strong start for Liv Morgan coming back. So if you're looking at it through the lens of John Cena making the next generation, that's what you theoretically want to do. You want to showcase as many talents as you possibly can. And, it was perfect, I think, use of John Cena at this point of his career, because John Cena is not going to be big match John in every single match. And this was just a story of John going at it against an entire faction. You get Super Cena one last time in terms of trying to defy the odds like he always did, but he couldn't do it this time around because he left his guard down, and it was because of Liv Morgan, and now you have that spotlight on Liv Morgan, on Dominic Mysterio, and the Judgment Day.
Rossi, we went from this to this.
It's kind of a good way for Cena to kind of poke fun of that too, because it just didn't fucking work out, right? It was we talked on here for probably 2 hours that night about how awesome of a segment it was, and how we got heel John Cena, and it didn't work, right? Because the big guy went home, and it is what it is. So I like that I like the full circle of it, and it made Liv look like a genius on her, and I think they got big plans for Liv moving forward. So at the end of the day, I'm not mad at it.
I know, it's just, we're going to take a look back at the John Cena's run, in December, us three, and we're going to go over it then, and then we'll have peaks and valleys throughout the whole year, and we'll cross that bridge then.
If Dom gets to the level that we think he's going to get to, this will age well, right?
Yeah.
Because he's a chicken shit heel. He's always going to be a chicken shit heel until they turn him, and he's going to be a massive baby face. But this is a notch on Dom's belt, and Cena's going to give us our go home work rate match probably in his last match, at least as much as he can work at this point.
You would think so, right? He can. He just had 3 incredible matches in a row after turning babyface at SummerSlam. My thing is, it felt like TV stuff. Like, I wish this was like the Dom stuff was like a TV aspect. I get the hometown aspect of it all, so I'm not fully mad at it. And like you said, Rossi, we'll see where Dom is. We'll see how this age, and it's probably going to age fine, but it just felt like TV. It felt like Survivor Series, the last PLE. John should have had one more grudge. Like, this should have been the Edge match. That obviously Edge isn't available, right? But this should have been that. He fought Randy Orton. He fought CM Punk. He fought AJ Styles. This should have been the match where he fought that one last guy. And I guess The Rock's not available. Edge isn't available, so that shouldn't have happened. I just feel like that last PLE should have been with the likes of CM Punk, with the likes of Randy Orton, with the likes of AJ Styles.
Didn't want that Brock rematch, did you?
No. Oh, no.
And that's the thing is they were handcuffed because you had the tournament. They're all fighting for the right to face him. And then look at the 10 guys you had in War Games, right? Like a Braun or a Bronson. Those were guys that would have been natural fits here. So Dom was, especially in San Diego, really the right choice. And you weren't going to have, like, to Richie's point, you had the super senior in Boston, and now you had Cena kind of being a dumbass in San Diego. It is what it is, right? Like, I don't think it's going to be something that's going to be damning. As long as his last match is good, we won't care about this anymore.
They're gonna land. They're gonna land the plane just off the vibes heading into it. Everyone's yearning for it. All right. Alexa Bliss, AJ Lee, Charlotte Flair, Io Sky, and Rhea Ripley defeated Becky Lynch, Lash Legend, Nia Jax, and the Kabuki Warriors in 41 minutes and 10 seconds to win the opening War Games match. It was fine. It was good in some aspects of it. It was probably the most thrown together War Games, even though there are some elements of feuds, but 3 separate feuds. And there was enough meat on the bone to kind of sink your teeth into it. But what I don't like about the women's War Games, it's unlike we talked about being built around stories and teamwork and stuff like that. This match is built around weapons and women with the weapons, with the nunchucks and not even nunchucks. They should have used nunchucks, but the kendo sticks and the chains and all that stuff. It just feels like a gimmick and it feels forced to me. It feels like it's like, well, we have to do this. And it's like we have a women's Royal Rumble. So there's a men's Royal Rumble. We need a women's Royal Rumble. There's a men's elimination chamber that we need an elimination chamber. This is the biggest gripe with the men have it, so the women have to have it. But the biggest gripe is War Games shouldn't be a bastardized things come Thanksgiving every year. It should be when it's called upon, right? So if they want to have a Backlash War Games, if that's what's warranted it for a Backlash War Games, that's when they should do it, because there's the story that defines it. But this is the definition of the story does not define it. And there was no character. They kind of played off weapons instead of building off stories like the men did. And with the modern day WWE, to build off weapons, they feel like toys. And when you play with toys, it feels amateurish, in my opinion. Richie, do you agree with that sentiment before we kind of get into it?
There was some, I guess, story, I think, for the War Games. Like, you had Charlotte save Rhea from the mist, which I thought was a good spot. And taking out Lash was a good choice because it protects her from, still being so new. And I think Lash really did show out here. It was more about, again, all these individual feuds coming together rather than the need for it to be team versus team.
Yeah.
And I think it did hurt the match to a certain degree. I thought there were some things that I didn't necessarily like when, like, Io did the swanton. Like, I thought it was a good spot, but she's like pinning both the people that she landed on, and the refs aren't counting for it. So I felt like that was,
you had to get your trash can spot. You knew it was coming.
It's like again, the Io Sky like spray paint on the trash can. I liked, gives it the individuality, but it's like, here's the Io Sky like trash can spot, where it's just like,
oh, this is gonna go viral. No, it's not.
And the thing is, I wish there was more, I guess, character stuff, because like the Kabuki Warriors and Rhea Ripley Io Sky story has been one of the highlights of Raw. Story. It is a really good story, and I think like the build to this War Games and specifically, and Ryan, I think we talked about this when we were previewing it. Rhea being taken out with that nose injury, like, really affected the build, because then you just had to do the Kabuki Warriors, like, just randomly getting a title shot against Charlotte and Alexa, and that's how they get involved in this issue. And then you just tack on the Becky and AJ story, which again is fine. It's just this match needed about a week or two build in order to really get everybody's stories back in line with each other. And again, I think it was a good showcase for AJ. I think it was a good showcase for Lash. But other than that, it just felt like a very go through the motions War Games. And that's what these War Games matches in general have been feeling like, where it's just like, all right, you got teams, so can they coexist? Can they not coexist? And then, looks like there's no twists or turns. It's exactly how it's happening. And again, when something's predictable, it's not inherently bad. And I think a lot of people think just because you predict something, that means it's bad because they didn't swerve you.
No, not at all.
The thing is, it's like, if you don't take somebody on that journey to that predictable ending, then that's when it becomes tedious. Like, for Avengers Endgame, I know the heroes are coming back because I've seen the trailers and everybody signed on these contracts. So I know they're going to come back. It's how they come back. It's how they write the characters back in there. Same thing with wrestling. It's like, I know like most likely what's going to happen here. The heels are probably going to get their comeuppance, but it's how they do it. I think the finishing spot was fine. You know, I thought the ending with AJ tapping out Becky again with Jessica Carr as the referee was a strong spot. And it's going to continue the Becky AJ feud. But everybody else, I don't feel like had that strong tie-in of like, do we really need to continue the Kabuki Warriors and Rhea Ripley Io Sky feud? Do we need to continue the Charlotte Flair, Nia and Lash feud? Like, what are we doing here? Like, this year has been very like low key a great year for the women's tag team division, and I'm wondering how we're going to transition off from that into the next time these teams face off. Personally, I'd like to see like the fatal 4-way like tag team match for the tag, because I feel like that's the natural progression. But usually like with matches like War Games or anything like that, that's usually the end. Finito. Don't need to revisit this issue again.
That's the problem, in my opinion, that I was going to throw to Rossi. Rossi, there's no conclusion to any of these things, really. You get a high point and an acceleration with AJ and Becky, but if we're having a War Games is to conclude something historically. A War Games is because the heels are escaping and taking mysterious fucking routes to get away from the baby faces. It's not to continue a feud. It's not to be chapter 5 of fucking 10 in the Kabuki Warriors feud. You know what I mean? It's just, that's the biggest problem, in my opinion, is it's built around War Games, not built to War Games, these feuds and these stories. That's, it might be nitpicky. It might too much of a history fucking nerd.
No, I mean, it was an unnecessary match, so I don't think that you're wrong. The one thing that I would say is I think that it accomplished what they probably wanted to coming out of the match, because I think the 5 baby faces looked pretty strong. I think Io and Rhea are obviously still in that high regard. Rhea looked like a badass. Io obviously had the big spot like she always does. It just felt like a similar match to prior years. My biggest takeaways were, I think Charlotte got a really good babyface reaction. I think it was smart that she came out first, and everybody was going to probably give the first person out a good reaction. But they stuck with her throughout the match. Everything that she was doing, in the early phases of the match, the crowd was behind on her. And at times, this match definitely lulled. Like when Kyrie came out, and it was just, she's this heel with a chain, and she's so unimposing. All of her strikes look like shit. She could barely swing the chain. It just didn't work. But
of course it's green for some reason, right? To stand out.
But the flip side, I thought Lash presentation was good. I think they really focused on her having a slow entrance.
Her Lash was smart.
Yeah, she looked good. She's probably the best shape she's been in. She looked pretty good in the match. I mean, she's disoriented at times, but everybody was, right? Everybody was selling for her. I think AJ looked really good for somebody that's in her second match in however many years. She, in an uncomfortable spot probably for her, I think she looked good. And at the end of the day,
yeah,
what?
She was safe. They set her up for success, right, and she succeeded in that setup.
At the end of the day, I really like the finish, like Rhea throwing AJ on her shoulders to get to Io. I thought that took out the 4 heels, and that isolated Becky, who got out of the way and was like, "Wow, all my partners are idiots." And then she ate 4 finishers, and they went home. So Becky needed to get beat up by 4 people to get pinned. So she still has plenty of stuff to bitch about. Her nemesis as a referee is still there for her to bitch about, and Becky Lynch bitching and moaning has been really entertaining. And then you've got really Io, AJ, Charlotte, and Rhea are all going to be 4 of you for the Mania build, likely, unless we have like a Charlotte Alexa turn at some point, which obviously could happen. But they put them, they held them in a high regard, and let's be honest, Kyrie and Asuka, yeah, can Asuka get to that main event level again? Yes. I don't think she's going to because they have too many other heels that they're going to focus on. And then Lash and Nia have a ceiling too, and they're going to pretty much just be a tag team. So I had the right team win. I think the babyfaces all looked good, and Becky looked good as well coming out of it, which means that they accomplished everything we needed to.
All right, Wi-Fi in Charlton's getting a little rough there, Rossi. But to conclude your thoughts as well, I thought the booking of Becky was really good here. Right, they built the structure around. I seemed down on the match. I still think it was good for what it was. Right, I just overall structure and presentation and the why is probably my issue. The result, they did their job. I thought, like I said, I think I said in the chat with you two, I was like, oh, that was a week 3.5, right? Barely pretty good, but, kind of less in my ways, like tasteless, could use some spice, some substance, but within that structure, they did get me. I think the highlight of the night was probably Becky, just her continuing her deceleration of her character, trying to find herself. It's a good progression. Like you guys mentioned, Cars still her adversary. She was in there in the mix as well. It plays into the conspiracy theory of her character going on right now. I thought that Alexa was kind of like the glue for a lot of things. She moved a lot of things. She was always there to have Charlotte's back. And I thought underlying low-key Charlotte was a priority in this match, coming out first for that big pop. Important, right? Well, I don't think she's out of the questions for a Jade Royal Rumble match or a Jade WrestleMania match, worst case scenario. And I think that she's probably benefited the most this year from less, right? And honestly, Alexa Bliss is the MVP, and she got a big contract at the Royal Rumble to come back, and she's doing God's work rehabbing Charlotte Flair, who has big money potential still for this company. And some thought were lost and long in the tooth, but she was just not found within her character. And when she finds herself, I still think she's very capable in ring. She showed that tonight too as well. Richie, what do you think of my assessment of Charlotte and Alexa?
Yeah, I think you're right. Charlotte Flair was a priority because if Bianca isn't ready in time for WrestleMania, I could definitely see Charlotte being that person to go against Jade. And it's probably going to be the most prime position you're ever going to have Charlotte Flair in the babyface position, because of how Jade's heel run is starting and how much momentum Charlotte is building right now, slowly but surely. And then you're going to have that match, which is probably going to be, hopefully, one of Jade's best outings within WWE. And with Alexa, you kind of wonder where she's going to fit in all this. I think potentially you could have a fun Women's United States Championship feud if Charlotte's too preoccupied, and you could really put a shine on that title if you really want to. I feel like Chelsea and Alexa would have a fun chemistry together, and we've seen little bits and pieces of that. And I really think that Alexa does deserve some time to shine, at least within the championship scene. And if it's not the world title scene or the tag title scene, U.S. title scene is perfect for that kind of character. And plus you still have, I know a lot of people want to see her interact with the Wyatt Six, so that's always something else where you could kind of fall back on as well.
So Charlotte's gear was inspired by Scarlett, a young fan suffering from a brain tumor.
Yeah, they mentioned that, and they also interacted when Charlotte was walking to the ring too, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah,
they're selling a shirt that kind of fits the vibe too.
Yeah, and again, that's only going to do Charlotte good. I'm curious where she lands. I definitely think there's still juice there with her.
I think that the humanizing of Charlotte since she was with Alexa has been phenomenal. Yeah. And they fucked up her return, but they've definitely righted the ship. And honestly, even if Bianca's healthy, I think Charlotte and Jade's the way to go, because
at least at the Rumble.
You've got this energy behind Charlotte now that you want to have. Honestly, if Jade was to get a clean win over her, well, maybe not clean, but a win over her before her, whatever she does at Mania, I think that's a good way to go. And it keeps Charlotte out of the Rumble, which is huge because I feel like they'll always be tempted if she's in it. But especially, that's what I was thinking coming out of this match is this Royal Rumble, guys, for the women, we're not going to have a fucking clue who's going to win this match when it starts, because both, obviously we might have an idea of what happens with Jade, but Vicaire could be fucking anybody. So
I know who's going to win, Rossi.
Yeah, who?
The chicken scuba gear.
Okay. All right. Yep, you're right. There will be. But Liv is somebody that you got to think for that spot too. So it's going to be fun.
She elicited quite the reaction. So you never know, man. Can you imagine next time we're on here talking? It's gonna be at the Royal Rumble. We're gonna be talking about chicks in fucking one pieces and scuba gear, and they want to evolve and have these WrestleMania and all this shit. They need to kind of loosen up on the wardrobe. Just let the girls wear what they wear.
Yeah, Lash will be. I'm not even gonna finish that sentence.
All right. Overall, Royal PLE Survivor Series, in my opinion, a little disappointment. 4-match card. There wasn't much room for wiggle room disappointment wise. There was nothing bad whatsoever, but there was just nothing sexy, right? There was nothing that blew your socks off. There was nothing that wasn't what you thought it was going to be. And is that on you? Is that on me? Uncertainty. Was I entertained? Yes, I was. It was a good show. But good is good enough, Richie. Is me being somewhat disappointed in the show acceptable when I said it was good?
I mean, yeah, absolutely. You could admit something's good, but you could also admit something like it could still be a letdown at the same time. Like, I don't think that's a negative thing to do. It's being honest. And
the bar is high, brother.
Yeah, the bar is high. Again, when you promote something as like the all-star teams of these war game matches that don't really have like much oomph to them on paper, and then you tease it's like, oh, it's going to have WrestleMania implications, on social media. And then you just kind of have like a tease or two, and that's kind of it. Like this whole show really did feel like that week where there was just, the scenes of like, we're having close up of everyone's feet and they're just kind of walking. And then it just turned out to be a WrestleMania trailer. It just kind of felt like that. We're advertising for another show down the line, and this show doesn't really have main implications. And I feel like this show is kind of like a step up from like WrestlePalooza, but not by much.
Yeah, both shows still missing that watermark, and then Crown Jewel was just champions versus champion. So the ESPN era, you haven't really gotten that defining moment yet, Rossi. You kind of agree with that? The disappointment in the ESPN PLE era so far, is that true? Or are we just like in John Cena kind of maze and malaise, and we're kind of stuck and we're just waiting for his final match to end so we can get on with the WWE programming and see what top star kind of steals the headlines?
I kind of think go even further back than the ESPN era. I think 2025 has been the PLEs have been, to your point about this one, good. But I don't feel like there's much on these shows that you have to go back and rewatch, right? Obviously, there were some high moments at Mania. Rumble, I don't think anybody left, or yearning to go rewatch it. And that's just kind of how this year's been. It kind of feels like every WWE PLE right now, they're holding something back, right? They want to, it kind of feels like back in, to a degree, partly the Attitude Era days when the hook is to make sure you continue to watch to see what we do next, but nothing big is going to happen tonight, And that's how this has felt. Like we're talking about what might be coming out of this match for Mania and whatnot, but we might be overthinking that. We got to see what we're doing on Raw on Monday, and if Austin Theory gets revealed, right? It's been a year of, we'll say, adequate. Right, but we're not really jumping. Other than a high moment, pretty much been like one really good match in every show this year, except this one. But nothing's really winning you over to say, "Hey, I got to go rewatch this show."
This year is very much the embodiment of C's get degrees. You know what I mean? You're just giving them you're just giving the audience just enough where you're just like, okay, what's going to happen next?
Right. And they're making money ass over tea kettle, right? They sold 45,000 seats tonight legitimately. Maybe the 46 number was legit. I know as of this afternoon, it was like 44 and change. So we're at that point. They sell that amount of tickets, and it's like, well, we don't have to really give them anything, but we got to hook them to make them come back. And they're phenomenal at that. And we got a big Cena show in 2 weeks, and Then we're going to have some time off for the Rumble, and that's normally where you can start to really start feeling a build again. But, it's just they're making money, so they're successful, and they're happy with that.
They're in a very safe position, and that's the key word. They're in a very safe position because this is the first time where you have both men and women portrayed as stars, and they're not going anywhere. You have Roman, Cody, Punk, Seth when he comes back. You have newer stars like Dom, Braun, who are just kind of waiting in the wings. And then on the women's side, they're completely stacked. Rhea, Io, Charlotte, Alexa, AJ, Becky, Stephanie. You have all these different people, and Triple H is really good at kind of holding off on matches, but he could also give you teases where you're like, oh, I want to see that, like the Cody Punk stuff we were talking about earlier. The problem is you don't want to wait too long for that, because then the fan who's been watching for a couple of years will start to get disinterested.
Right.
But it's so far when they were doing that, holding off on certain matches, people were getting hyped for it, like Roman, Punk, or Seth and Punk. And then when you go to the well one too many times too often, then it seems more like a chore than it does like excitement.
And you have excitement coming in NXT too, whenever they're ready to pull that trigger. So they have the depth, they have the wherewithal to turn it up a notch, right? And they might just do that at Rumble. But we got to hang around and see, right?
Even before, because the Cena Saturday Night's main event is the exhibition matches between WWE stars and NXT stars, and you could do a shock win based on that as well. You could have Dom versus Obafemi, and then Obafemi just squashes Dom, and then you have a star who's already kind of made already. So it's you have all this potential on different acts that are coming up from NXT to kind of freshen up the rosters regardless.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to in 2 weeks what we get for that undercard of that event. I'm actually going to DC, so I will not be available for the post show. So we'll have to talk offline and see your guys' availability or see what's up with Justin and whatever.
I'm not going to be around that night either, so we'll figure it out.
We will figure it out when the time comes. So that's it for this one, boys. It's been a while. I'm going to go 5.5 out of 10. Richie?
Yeah, I was going to go around there, 5.5, 6.
Rossi?
Yeah, I can't argue that. I fell asleep during the main event. I woke up. I missed 5 minutes. I woke up, rewound it, and it was I didn't miss anything. So that tells me all I need to know.
Once
all right, guys.
This year, C's get degrees. C's get degrees.
All right, check out the channel for John Cena weekend. We got some content coming up. John Cena drafts, post shows, previews, and then a John Cena 2025 conclusion. So check it out, guys, and we'll see you sooner than later. Thank you.